Hey everybody, it's Howard at Mom's Music down here in Melwood, and welcome to this week's edition of Connections. Today, I can't wait for you guys to meet my dear friend, Andy Yost. Andy, come on over here, buddy. How are you, Howard?
Great to see you.
You too, man. Have a seat. So, I've known Andy for quite some time now, and he's got a really cool story. Tell everybody what your original connection to Mom's Music is.
So, where does it start? Born and raised Louisvillian. When I was a little kid, my parents encouraged us to get into music in some way. So when I became, into that kind of thing, I remember my first visions of walking into a music store and seeing things that I couldn't afford and
That's right. Yep.
So I remember going in there and seeing the wall. Actually, looks a lot like it does now. Wall of guitars and pianos and all these cool-looking people that I wanted to be like, and getting to play instruments, and it really fed into what I wanted to do, which is just be a part of that in some way.
Sure. Me too, man. I used to go over there and see Marvin when I was a kid, and he sold me many a things.
Is that right?
Yeah, oh yeah, my gosh. I get
remember-
into trouble in there all the time.
I told you this story before. I remember going in there, and I don't remember if it was like Christmas present or birthday or something like that, but I remember walking in and seeing, I think it was Gibsons, up on the wall, high up in the air, and not knowing what they were. I didn't have the understanding, like, oh, that's a Gibson, those are nice. But seeing things that I saw my heroes play, and I remember you, many years ago,
Yes.
you had a ponytail? Did you have a ponytail?
I had really long hair at one point, yeah.
See, and I remember you
Some
letting
people say
me-
it was a mullet.
Mullets are actually in fashion. But anyway, I remember you letting me play this. I was some, little kid who had no idea what he was doing. You pulled out a guitar and you sat down and you showed me how the controls work, and you let me play on it. And to this day, I still remember that's like, I don't have it yet, but that gold top guitar is like the number one guitar because of that experience at Mom's when I was a little kid.
So after, obviously you played around town forever and played guitar, probably took lessons at some point,
Yeah.
did all of that stuff. You somehow, and really cool, have ended up in our industry working for McFadden Sales, which is, they rep for us Shure microphones, the legendary SM58, which we will talk about here in a minute. How many of these do you think they've sold over the years? Any idea?
We don't ask those questions because they're.
You think a million?
Oh, way.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
it's ridiculous. We assume there's some chasm somewhere people are just throwing them into because they don't break.
Right.
People tell us every month, oh, I have mine from the 60s and
Sure.
the 80s. It still works fine, So,
Yeah, it's everywhere on every stage
Yeah.
all over the world.
Yeah.
Everywhere you step, that's the classic
Yeah.
handheld microphone. And it's pretty amazing that it's not really been changed in all these years.
No, they've made subtle improvements to piece parts here and there, but it's the same microphone that came out in the 60s. And actually, when the 57 and the 58 came out, they were not popular, which is an interesting.
Right.
They were really expensive, first of all, and they were not popular. And then they've changed a little bit over the years, but it's fascinating to me that it's a $99 microphone,
Right.
pure Mom's. It's the same microphone that name a musician plays on stage that could afford $10,000 microphone.
And they're using it.
And they're using that
Yeah.
because it's reliable and it's trustworthy and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Pretty amazing. So you also do, obviously, Takamini guitars with us, LTD guitars with us. Tell us a little bit about the state of those companies and what's going on with them.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, McFadden's a rep in the industry. So every brand in here has some face of the brand that comes in and talks to these people about things, whatever it may be. So our company does a few brands with Mom's. We'll start with ESP. ESP is a Japanese-made guitar company. LTD is their brand that's made in different parts of the world, but it's their most popular brand. About 2 years ago, they took on this distribution of Takamini, which just means they're affiliated domestically. But they're both Japanese brands. Both of them are, as far as bang for the buck and value, they're about as quality an instrument as you can possibly get. Whenever I pick up even the low end on these brands, it amazes me how inexpensive they are for how good they are. You look at the price
Totally
tag,
agree.
and
Yeah.
how is this only $400 guitars?
Yeah, and you can go home that night and turn on the Grammy Awards, and you'll see people playing Takamini
Yeah.
and ESP and LTD, and I mean, just all over. I mean, Country Music Awards. I mean, these
Yeah.
guitars. Takamini, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, started out as originally they were doing knockoffs of these legendary American
Yeah.
brands, but then they found their own, and they became like the live acoustic
Yeah.
electric guitar on stage, and so those players that didn't want to take their old Martins and
Pre-war
Gibsons,
Martin,
and things like that they would record with, they couldn't take them out on the road anymore. So Takamini found their way because they were building such wonderful guitars that could actually be used and thrown in and out of the truck every night. And
That's exactly right. Actually, there is lawsuit instruments still floating out there, as they call them. But what they're known for, besides their quality, is their preamps, so the pickups.
Sure.
Transitioning from acoustic to electric sound. That's how they were put on the map. Is people like the Eagles,
Right.
people way back then chose them because they sounded more representative of an actual acoustic instrument than anything else at the time. And that's still the same way this way. That and countless. I don't know why they're so big in country, but they are. Kenny Chesney and Garth Brooks, and Toby Keith, and many others. They're just road dogs. They don't.
Yeah.
They just are made so well. I guess they're just relied on.
Well, and I just remember when that was the go-to stage live guitar, and it just sounded so much. Everything else, in my opinion, back then sounded brittle and just harsh sounding, and
very natural.
And these guitars had this magical acoustic thing about them, and so of course they're still wonderfully made guitars, and they still own a lot of that market. And like I said, you can turn on any major award or any show or any video, and you'll see people playing those guitars.
Yeah.
And then we turn on the ESP LTD line, and you go to some place like Louder Than Life,
Right.
and the stages are filled with those instruments and all those artists. So you've got two really totally different kind of things. So you got the metal rock guys and that legendary player playing those guitars, and then you've got and even though on those stages you'll see Takamini's being played for the acoustic parts of those
For the
instruments.
same reasons, right? Yeah, ESP/LTD. It's the same kind of the QC, how well they're made and everything, is why their artist roster, which is really second to none, especially in metal stuff. You see most of those guys playing LTDs, playing guitars like this that are relatively affordable considering what a professional musician may play on the stage. They could be buying real, ESP original Japanese $5,000 instruments, but they're playing LTD because they're reliable and they're consistent. And it's just, it's the clout the brand has even at all price points. It's amazing.
It is pretty amazing. So obviously, what do you have coming up? Are you playing? You played around town forever?
Yeah.
Are you doing any playing right now? What's going on?
There's several points in my growing up that I remember were kind of key points in my journey. One was that moment in Mom seeing the things that I couldn't afford that I wanted in you, because I always say that's what you're doing in this store. You're transacting, but like the vibe that Mom's music has, but also the dream that is conveyed when you walk in here to little kids seeing stuff. Like that's what this is all about. And I remember that with Mom's.
I do too. That's exactly my story as well.
And there's several memories like that. So I played growing up in just crappy garage bands. Whoever the drummer was at the time, that's where we practiced. In his house. Played a jazz band in high school. I went to school in Nashville for recording industry, music business, things like that. And worked in Nashville for a while, and then got the opportunity to take this job almost 15 years ago. So moved back here, and it was the first time in my playing since I was like 7 years old that I didn't have lessons or a band I was playing with. And I never knew what it was like to not be working towards something. So I got a band together here in town years ago, and they're still playing. I've since walked away when got married, started having kiddos and things like that. I have young minds to mold. But they're still playing cover band around town, and then I shifted lately. It's mainly just been recording in my house when I can, which is not nearly as much as I'd like. But I've kind of found some motivation and inspiration again by like recording and sharing stuff.
Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, you never in our industry, you never stop learning. You never stop growing as a player. There's always these hurdles. I mean, I've been doing this my whole life. I've been blessed to do it, and it's every day there's something new. Every show there's something new. Every aspect of it. That's what I love about it. So there's still so many more things that I would like to do as a player and a musician, and it never stops. For me, it doesn't ever stop. And you too. I mean, look, we get to do this. This is the greatest thing ever.
And that's the thing. We were just talking before action here, but you got the Crashers thing going on. But it's easy as a musician, or probably any artistic vocation, to have like plateaus where the passion for the music or something just isn't cutting it. You don't play as much or whatever. So having something to work towards, even if it's taking lessons, or the means to recording these days is so easy. A microphone into your iPhone can sound spectacular.
Right.
Just having something to do to kind of collaborate with other musicians is so important, I think, to do. And that's what, I don't know, another one of my favorite things about Moms is, I mean, we've had to wait to do this video because there's so many people in here, in community making things happen. It's just it's great. I always encourage people to collaborate, do things with other people.
Well, I always tell people when they're learning, it only really starts to get great when you're playing with other people.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's where it really gets good. It's important to take private lessons. It's important to practice, but it doesn't really start to happen until you start working with other people, because then it just opens it up, and you can get much more creative. So we'll kind of wrap this thing up here, and so tell people how they can find out about. They can go to I'm sure that sure.com.
Yeah, there's a number. So our company is McFadden Sales, which shouldn't matter to any of you all, because we're kind of the middle person between. We define ourselves as an extension of the brands to the dealers, like Mom's Music. So all the brands have their own websites, of course. Sure.com is a fantastic site, especially for users like you all, because it's really educational.
Right.
It kind of helps you what you're looking for and shows you applications. ESPguitars.com takes you to both ESP and Takamini.
Yep, that's true.
And you can get lost on their social media too. The amount of artists and content creators backing the brands and putting out unbelievable content from their bedroom is pretty amazing.
You know, the other thing too is you can always obviously call us. We want you to subscribe to our YouTube page. You can find us on Facebook, momsmusic.com. But I love the fact that Andy lives here in Louisville. So if somebody has a Takamini or an ESP or a Shure question, it's literally me picking up the phone and going, hey Andy, blah, 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 this is what's going on, can you help me? And he's there, he's available. And that's a bonus, because a lot of times we don't have a face in the area to ask those questions. And I mean, he's done everything from church installations with sound to softball stadiums. So it's every kind of application you can imagine, and that's what's great. And I'm really proud of you, dude.
Yeah.
Great. I
Thanks,
appreciate you
Ian.
hanging with
Well,
me.
so happy to be a part of it.
So stop by. We'll be here again with another episode soon, and we'll talk to you guys later. Thanks.